Good morning, friends and colleagues. Welcome to Georgetown University's initiative for U.S.-China dialogue and the forum today hosted on agriculture, trade, and food safety between the U.S. and China. My name is Trace Bailey with Walmart Stores, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning and get this program started. Please help yourself to coffee, water, or whatever you need. We are honored today to have the presence of Georgetown University's president, Dr. Joya, who is going to officially kick off the program this morning and welcome you all. So, Dr. Joya.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to welcome you here to Georgetown. If you sense a collective sort of sigh here in this community, we spent the weekend in, I think, 17 different ceremonies welcoming, commencing our graduates of this year's class. I think we had about 5,000 of them across all of our schools. And now we're back to work. So it's great to have you all here, and I want to thank you. And it's a pleasure to welcome you here to the home of our McDonough School of Business. And as you know, we're gathered here this morning through the efforts of the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center and the U.S.-China Agriculture and Food Partnership. And Georgetown is honored to serve as the host for this meeting through our Georgetown Initiative for U.S.-China Dialogue on Global Issues. And we're grateful for your work together to convene this dialogue and for bringing this group of panelists and participants together today. Over the course of these next few hours, you'll be engaged in a series of conversations. You'll hear from experts across government, industry, and the academy on the challenges and opportunities in ensuring food safety, the importance of trade, the possibilities of public and private collaboration, and technological innovations that can drive change in the future. These conversations, this forum, is only possible because of the spirit of partnership and collaboration that is present among you. And we're grateful to have this opportunity to participate in such an engagement. Here, we have a deep commitment to try to understand at ever deeper levels the kinds of challenges that are defining our world today. This commitment to dialogue and exchange has provided the foundation for our engagement globally, and also particularly for the work of our initiative for U.S.-China dialogue on global issues. For almost 2 decades now, we've been engaged with leading institutions and organizations in China, welcoming scholars, supporting student and faculty research, pursuing opportunities for cultural exchange and education. Today, our initiative for U.S.-China dialogue is a central convening context for important gatherings of scholars, students, and institutions seeking to contribute to shared understanding, shared approaches on critical issues from the environment to global development. This morning, as we host this important conversation, we build upon this tradition of engagement, and we're deeply grateful for your presence and for your contributions today. Working together, we can create a strong framework for education and dialogue and for strengthening the context for our entire global community. I wish to thank Tom Banchoff, our Vice President for Global Engagement here at Georgetown, and Dennis Wilder, our Managing Director of our Initiative for U.S.-China Dialogue, and my colleagues who have helped to sustain and deepen these efforts over the course of these years. And now, as we open our forum this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome our first speaker. Dan Bryan serves as the Senior Vice President of Global Public Policy for Walmart, and we've had the opportunity to work together on projects over the course of the last years, and it's an honor for me to welcome Dan back here and to express our gratitude for his leadership and for his presence here this morning. And it's wonderful to have this opportunity to be with him today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, thank you, President DeGioia, to you and your extraordinary team, Tom, Dennis. Thank you. A special call out to Carly Henry. Where are you with your caffeinated eyes, having having been delayed because of weather, not arriving to the wee hours of the morning to be here, but having led, coordinated, and directed this. She is wrapping up as a biz student here at Georgetown. We can't wait to get to know you better, Carly, going forward. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. You're busy. You're here because you know this topic really matters. It matters here in the U.S. It matters in China. It matters around the world. Thank you. This is an extraordinary group. I do want to, again, especially thank our co-host, Georgetown University, specifically the Initiative for U.S.-China Dialogue, a remarkable platform doing remarkable work on behalf of these two great economies, cultures, peoples, but more profoundly cascading the benefits of that maturing relationship, we hope, for the world. Also, a big thank you to the U.S.-China Agriculture Food Partnership. We will hear from them in a moment. Great work. Thank you for your co-hosting this event. Also, let me just at the outset thank our keynote speaker, academician Chen Jingshu. What a privilege to have you with us, sir. We're delighted. Also, we are pleased today to have officials with us from USDA, FDA, USTR, the Chinese Embassy. Thank you. You make this discussion meaningful and impactful. Thank you for being here. We're delighted to be collaborating with you. While Walmart will never forget our roots in the American heartland, we operate today, of course, all around the world, and we do so in an era of global supply chains and highly interdependent economies. That's the world in which we live. Over the last 20 years, food has become the majority portion of our business. Indeed, we are today the world's largest food retailer. As a result, we are keenly focused on the importance of food and agricultural trade and collaboration globally, including, importantly, between China and the U.S. The U.S. and China are, of course, critical markets for Walmart, both as retail markets and for sourcing goods. We are particularly heartened to see our growing market for U.S. exports to China facilitated both through our stores and the e-commerce marketplace. There are, it goes without saying, but I'll say it and underscore it, there are enormous complexities in the food value chains of these two largest economies in the world, posing significant challenges to policymakers and relevant agencies in both countries. But of course, those challenges don't just fall on government agencies. Responsibility is broadly shared across society and significantly depends on industry playing its crucial role. Might I add, the Academy. The Academy has always played a vital role related to food system issues through its research, subject matter expertise, and its policy thought leadership. Shared governance related to food and ag issues is important to manage the right balance between local information and expert planning. It creates an effective feedback system between policymakers and those working the issues day to day on the ground. This system facilitates governments being kept aware of any difficulties at any point on the food value chain when implementing new regulations or policy directives, which in turn allows industry to work more effectively with government agencies to find better real-world solutions. Our China-based Food Safety Collaboration Center was established a year and a half ago with the objective of facilitating and improving such food system collaboration and geared toward aiding policymakers and supervision bodies. I am pleased to announce this morning that the center is making a difference. We're blessed with exceptional leadership, with a great team at the center, and we have important momentum. The center is currently working with various regulatory agencies, social organizations, industry partners, as well as the Academy on key issues such as food fraud detection and children's food safety awareness. An important part of the work of the center involves promoting innovation in the food system, and we will learn more about these initiatives in just a moment. Our discussions today are occurring at a critical time in the U.S.-China relationship. And while talks continue between our two countries at the highest levels, it is timely to underscore two basic points in relation to both the U.S. and China. First, maintaining a healthy trade and effective collaboration in food between the world's two largest economies is critical to the well-being of consumers in both countries, and I think it's fair to say consumers all around the world. Second, there are countless common opportunities for key stakeholders in the U.S. and China to learn and to grow by rallying around a crucial topic like food safety. Large nations will have their disputes. I couldn't even keep up with a flurry of headlines this morning and over the weekend related to these two great countries and their economies as dialogues continued right through the weekend. I think I saw some very positive ones, and we would welcome that. But of course, there will be ups and downs as we move forward with these important discussions. But there are so many benefits that flow daily from our bilateral cooperation. So to that point, I'm delighted that today's panels begin by highlighting some of the important work of the Center and its partners to do just that, to drive real food safety solutions through meaningful collaboration, through systemic improvement. So let me once again welcome you and thank you for being here. I'm delighted now to introduce Jennifer Lee, Executive Director of the U.S.-China Agriculture and Food Partnership. Jennifer.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks to Dan for the introduction, and just wanted to say on behalf of the U.S.-China Agriculture Food Partnership that we are proud to co-organize today's event, and I want to thank our two co-organizers today. First of all, I want to thank Georgetown University for hosting us on your beautiful campus, and especially after such a flurry of activities for graduation. I also want to thank our board member and our supporters from the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center, and I want to especially extend our warm welcome to our Chinese guests who are visiting from China. As I look around the room today, we see today members who are key stakeholders in U.S.-China relations in our agriculture and food relationship. In this room are many partners, but also many friends. You are all stakeholders and experts that work together to provide the world safe, reliable, and affordable food. All of you work together to shape U.S.-China agriculture food supply chains. And ultimately, not only just for U.S. and China, these two nations, as we all know, with global food supply chains and trade working the way they are, ultimately today, we are talking not only about the great nations of U.S. and China, we're also talking about how that impacts the world ultimately as well. So how we collaborate and engage today shapes not only supply chains today, but also in the future and in this world. So today, what a great opportunity for us to bring together stakeholders to highlight the significance of food and agriculture trade between U.S. and China, and most importantly, to find opportunities that we can work together in the midst of these changing environments that Dan was mentioning earlier. This is a special time and an important time for us to be having dialogues like this. So today, we hope to underscore the importance of food safety, improved traceability, transparency, and most important, trust. Trust between our nation, trust between stakeholders, trust ultimately between consumers that we ultimately all serve in our two great nations, but also around the world. And we hope today to find solutions that could be mutually beneficial. And we're all part of a legacy. I'm often reminded that the agriculture-food relationship between U.S. and China is actually one of the foundations of our relationship between U.S. and China. Ever since our two nations reestablished diplomatic relations in 1979, our governments, our universities, our industry associations and collaborators, and many of the companies in this room, you have all been a part of working together, our two nations, every sector. And we have been working together to promote best practices. There are exchange programs, there's technical training, and that has been what has been the foundation of where we are today. Already, our relationship, not only at a policy level, but ultimately at a commercial level as well. And so today I speak on behalf of the Agriculture Food Partnership. We came together in 2009, and many of you in this room are partners in this initiative. And we have come together because we saw an opportunity to extend and elevate the relationship that has been going strong since 1979. Because we believe that aligning efforts between every parts of the supply chain, between the sectors public, private, NGO, academia, that between US and China, that coming together is really what it requires for us to actually see improvements in food security, food safety, agricultural sustainability. That's why we're here together. So AFP, that is our history, based off that foundation. And we were ultimately launched in 2012 when then Vice President Xi Jinping went to Iowa and met with then Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, who is currently the U.S. ambassador to China. Then they came together so that our two nations would cooperate on common goals of fostering what we call the 3 S's: security, safety, agricultural sustainability. And that's why we're here today. So proud to be here today on behalf of the AFP network, which has over 50 plus associations, cooperators, companies in our network, from farm to fork, from seed to retail. And very happy today that some of our board members and leaders from ADM, Corteva, the America Seed Trade Association, OSI Group, FAEA, Smithfield, Tyson, North America Meat Institute, and of course Walmart will be speaking today. And may I just release a challenge to everybody, maybe an outcome and a goal for today. I think there's many, many meetings of this sort that are happening in DC, in Beijing, many different places. And we need to have more of these kind of meetings. But I think we've all sat in a lot of different meetings where there's been a really great dialogue. But the question is, where does that actually result in, how can we follow up on what comes out of these meetings? And that's partly why the AFP network came together, is because we work with Chinese partners on the whole supply chain in industry working groups with industry plans. And our goal is to not only have more meetings, but trainings, technical discussions, pilots, flagship projects. And that ultimately becomes a resource in which to help and work and complement, essentially, the track 1 diplomacy that is happening concurrently to what we're doing. So today, this is a gathering of track 2 diplomacy, as they teach us in international relations. And we're in DC, so I can say that, and you understand what I mean. So with that, I want to thank again Georgetown University. I want to thank Walmart and the Food Safety Collaboration Center. And want to thank you all for coming today. Some of you are coming from quite far in China. I just got off the plane as well from Beijing this morning as well, or last night as well. But we're just really looking for today's dialogue and looking forward to hopefully come up with mutual solutions for our common goals. Thanks again. And with this, I'd like to introduce now our guest of honor, Mr. Chen Jingshu of the China National Center for the Food Safety and Risk Assessment. Chen 老师.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here. And I like to start with my thanking for the organizers, Walmart and AFP, and also thanks for Georgetown University for hosting this very important meeting here. As a food safety scientist, I would like to talk a little bit about 3 keywords. One is, of course, food safety, and the second, agriculture, and the third is international trade. So the first, food safety situations in China. You all remember the melamine crisis in China in 2008. Now it's more than 10 years. And within the last 10 years, the Chinese government has strengthened legislation and enforcement, especially the update of the China food safety law. And also the industry in China, including international companies, they have been trying very hard to ensure that their products are safe. And if you, for example, the dairy industry in China, if you look back 10 years ago and now, totally different. All those infant formula production facilities, totally different. And as the China Food and Drug Administration always presented, this is the changes in the total food compliance rate in China during the last 30 years or so. So you can see very different. Now the total compliance rate is up to 98%. From strictly science point of view, you may argue those numbers are not comparable because in the last 30 years, the standard, the indicator, the criteria are changed, and the testing methodology also have been changed. So it's not comparable. But my point is, the trend is valid. Especially you look at the number of samples in the brackets. They are very large number of samples, and they are nationally representative. So I would argue the trend of improvement is valid. And then the same data set, if you break down to the 6 major food categories, including the consumption, amount of consumption, and also the risk in food safety, they're all improved. Even in the condiments, it used to be very poor because of the homemade soy sauce factories, something like that. But now they are also already industrialized. But the compliance rate, it only shows the improvement. It does not mean there's no food safety problems in China. We still have a lot of problems. In my view, at the present in China, the major food safety problem is the consumer's concern or the trust mentioned by Jennifer a few minutes ago. Given the government and the industry, they're putting a lot of energy and made significant improvements. However, in the consumer's perception, food safety in China is still very, very poor. The common saying is there's nothing to eat. So it shows the lack of trust and confidence. Lack of trust not only to industry, also trust to the government. So the real issue is they have very little confidence to the whole food supply, although there are a lot of products in the market. The fundamental reason for this conflict between the real actual improvements in food safety and still the very negative perception in the consumers, my view is this caused by the conflict between the growing consumer demands for high quality and safe food. The consumers now have more money in their pocket. They have all the reasons to say, I need quality and safety. This is one side. But the other side, the reality is the agriculture and the food industry structure is still very underdeveloped. We still have more than 1,000 millions of individual farmers. How can there be no contamination problem, such as pesticide and veterinary drug residues? And again, in the manufacturing and the retailing field, there are many, many small, so-called SME enterprises. So that's the real issue. So consumers want to change the food safety situation tomorrow, but that's not possible. We need to change the agriculture and the food industry structure first. Now a little bit on the trade. Focus on the agriculture products. This is quite a recent government data from AQSIQ, although AQSIQ is no longer existed because of the recent reform of the government agency structure. So in the last 10 years, again, in the last 10 years, you can see the increase of the food import in China. Now, every Chinese consumer is eating food from outside China, which is very easy. Just use your computer, your cell phone, then the imported food could be delivered into your home from anywhere in the world. So you see, in the last, just to see the value of the food import is increased significantly, 2.5 times in the 10 years. I think this is not very usual in other nations around the world. So the rapid increase of the import, it has a lot of implications. I don't have time to elaborate. So the challenges, as a scientist, we always face a lot of issues that could not be solved by science only. So these are the case examples. Ractopamine is a veterinary drug. Because of the clenbuterol case in China, which caused the death of many people, and also the illegal use of clenbuterol in China. So China banned the use of clenbuterol and also ractopamine because they are the same type of, same category of veterinary drugs. Theoretically, ractopamine could be used safely if you used according to the regulation and used properly. There will be very little residue. And this has been gone through international risk assessment, like JACFA. And there's in the codex You all know about Codex. We have 6 years of debate in Codex whether we should set up a upper limit for ractopamine residues in animal foods. And China is against the setting up of Codex limits. The only reason is not because of science. It's because of China banned the use of ractopamine. If we agreed ractopamine could be used according to the international standard, then how can we strictly control the use of ractopamine in China, given just I mentioned, we have an individual, very small pig farms. It's impossible to control. The only way for China is to ban the use. Again, I'm not going to go all the details through this list. And the second one is GM crops. We know very well. Scientifically, GM crops, if it's approved by any nation's government agencies, it is safe. From scientifically, it's safe, no problem. But we do have trade problems beyond science. And recently, we have the ingredients derived from genetically modified microorganisms, such as enzymes. A large proportion of the enzymes used in food production are genetically modified. This is the advancement of science and technology. But in China, because of the GM problem of the GM crops, the consumers have a highly concern on the safety of GM crops. So they believe the products, enzymes from the GM microorganisms is also not safe. So that's caused a huge problem in the local production and also in international trade. Not only enzymes, it's also related to the polysaccharides and amino acid and high variety of food products, food ingredients, and additives. I'm not going to go through all these cases, just to make my point. That's in the international food trade, the trend is increasing, that's no doubt. But at the same time, we are facing a lot of challenges. And many of those challenges are beyond science. We need to find other solutions. So I think the only way to facilitate food trade is to expand, strengthen the international collaboration, like dialogue, as this meeting today, and the new technology, and the third-party assistance in capacity building. In China, we do need assistance from the other more developed countries in capacity building. China is not really short of money now, but capacity building is what we really need to get from the international collaboration. Thank you very much.
Professor, thank you so much for those thoughtful remarks. It certainly provides a great foundation and phenomenal context for the rest of the conversation that we will have here today. And if I can, I'll invite the first panel up here with our moderator. But the first conversation today, I think, builds nicely upon what we just heard. And we'll have an opportunity now to look at the technological and the innovation in technology and in education that's helping improve the food systems that we're engaged in here and in China. Our moderator of this panel, you can come on up, is Dr. Zhenong Yan. Zhenong leads the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center in Beijing and has had a long, distinguished career in food safety and in academia. Prior to joining Walmart, he served as the Asia Pacific Director for Eco Labs. He's also an assistant professor of nutrition at Michigan State University. He's the co-founder of the Chinese Association of Food Protection in North America and has also served in a number of other international organizations focused on and delivering food safety around the world. Zhenong, thank you, and we'll welcome your other panelists.
Thank you, Trace. If I would, could you ask our panelist, Professor Joseph Levy from MIT, Professor Yanbin Li from University of Arkansas, and Dr. Bradley from Smithfield, and Frank from Walmart, come to join us on the stage. Good morning. Thank you very much to join us for this session. We talk about technology and educational innovation to improve food safety. We are very, very honored to have the distinguished speakers join us. So, as Dan mentioned in the opening remarks, Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center established a year and a half ago. Our mission is to advance the food safety so people can live better, and our mission is to provide a platform. So for all the resources, stakeholders come together to collaborate to improve the food safety in China. Our work covered food safety innovation and education, and also the policy support. Today, and we are very specifically talking about the innovation now. So with that being said, and I would like to invite our first speaker, Professor Levy from MIT, to give us the speech.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to share with you very briefly about work that we've been doing with the generous support of the Food Safety Collaboration Center of Walmart. That is part of a bigger effort that we have in our team around food safety. And more generally, MIT has actually, about 2 years ago, has launched an institute-wide effort around food and water security that includes the safety issues as well. And let me start by sharing a few observations as maybe a relatively newcomer to this area. It's actually interesting that very recently China has decided to separate organizationally the food regulation from pharmaceutical regulation. But it's fair to say that in most other countries, these two tasks are often done by the same organization. And that might explain why often what you see is the paradigm of trying to apply what is working in the pharmaceutical domain to food, where in the pharmaceutical domain, the main principle is to have a very stringent recipe and a great focus on testing final products to see if they match the recipe. You can have a perfectly functional Advil that is safe to use, but if you deviate from that recipe, you're going to be declined from the market or denied from the market. And the challenge when it comes to food is that ask yourself how many recipes you know for chicken soup. So things are far more complex when it comes to food. There are many more things that can penetrate the supply chain. And these supply chains, and this was mentioned already today, are very complex, very opaque, particularly in China and other developing countries where you have millions of individual farmers. And unfortunately, this is also the source of many of the problems that we have around food safety and food adulteration. So one of the themes of our work is to truly try to understand those supply chains, create transparency to them, and understand what makes them risky in a very holistic way that really looks on the supply chain structure, the supply chain environment, the regulatory environment of the supply chain. So that's kind of one leg of what we are trying to do. The other leg has to do with the current capabilities of testing food. Current capabilities are very targeted. For every specific unique other trend, like let's say antibiotics you need to develop an ad hoc setting that is often a lab-based setting that takes quite a lot of time and is quite expensive. And if you now want to expand this to another other trend, you actually have to build yet another dedicated setting. And that makes the economics of testing food very problematic. And in fact, when you look on most food monitoring programs, they are very sparse. They're very sparse in terms of the number of other trends you test for. They're very sparse in terms of the frequency you test. They're very sparse in terms of the places or the locations throughout the supply chains where you test. And we believe that that's another weak area, and therefore our team actually consists of a technical team that develops a new generation of far more robust testing capabilities. And the vision might be a handheld device in the field that in one test can test for up to 140 different other trends. That's kind of our vision. Okay, so food safety, the language and the terminology could be quite diverse, and I want to just offer one approach to look on the spectrum of food safety issues through the intention perspective. So on one hand, you have unintentional adulteration that could be resulted by being negligible or not having good practices. Think about salmonella and other incidents on that domain. On the other extreme, you have elements or organizations that have terror motivations intentionally to harm the food system. And maybe the focus of our team is in the middle, where you are talking about intentional adulteration, where the intention exists, but maybe the motivation is more economic and financial reasons. And while there is no clear separation between all of these types of adulteration, one of the things that is most concerning is the thing in the middle, because these are the things that just enforcing straight is not going to be necessarily enough, because this is a very dynamic set of risks, because the other side is actually acting in response to what regulatory and industry stakeholders are doing. So our focus was to really try and understand what makes supply chains, what are the situations that are more risky with respect to economically motivated adulteration. So just very briefly, we have a very, very multidisciplinary team that consists of people that do supply chain management, big data analytics, food science, but also the other technical aspects that allow you to develop technical and testing capabilities. Very multidisciplinary team here at MIT. Data is key. I think that when you want to create transparency, data is going to be key. And I think that the premise in the food industry that data is very hard to get, I agree with that, but I also want to say that there is hope. And I hope that some of our work that we've done over the last several years suggests that there is hope. And I wanted to take you of what is currently possible, even from public data. So, for example, you can actually use a lot of bill of lading. These are publicly available shipping documents to actually map a lot of parts of the supply chain. If you work with regulatory organizations, we had the fortune to work for 3 years under an FDA contract. You can actually expand this data. And in China, and I will share in just a few minutes, we're actually doing extensive work with collaborators on the ground to map supply chains, agriculture supply chains up to the farm level, and really try and understand their environments and really map them up and understand the risks. So this is a very extensive work, but I think that the only way to do that is to really collaborate. And collaboration is really key here to actually get the right data to make the right decisions and be able to more proactively manage risk. So again, I want to thank the Food Safety Collaboration Center and Walmart Foundation for allowing us to launch this journey in October 2016. And I want to share with you a few of the things that we are doing under this effort. And maybe in the spirit of collaboration, I just want to emphasize this is not an MIT project. This is actually a collection of organizations that work together. We have 4 partners currently actively working together with us in China, the Zhejiang University, the Beijing Business College Management, and the ASTT, which is a testing organization in Shanghai. These are organizations that did not work with each other until this project. They got together through the collaboration with MIT and the generous funding of Walmart. We also work with a private company, Isostone, as well. So, and to me, this is just the beginning. We need to expand this to include government organizations, to include more industry partners, and part of our task is to build that ecosystem. We are focusing currently on aquatic products, fresh water or grown aquatic product, which is one of the more risky products. And what you see here is a very complex supply chain. Millions of farms on the one hand, millions of stores and restaurants on the other hand, on the right-hand side hand. And very, very actually complex regulatory environment. That's another thing that is unique to China. The regulatory environment in China is distributed not only across many organizations, but actually across geography. So in fact, every city and every province has its unique regulatory environment, and that actually makes things even more complex. But one thing that the supply chain analysis already taught us is that there seemed to be an interesting consolidation point in this supply chain, which are the wholesale markets. These are really huge markets that for many product categories, such as fresh aquatic products, produce of fruits and vegetables, they actually consolidate about 70 to 80% of the flow to the entire country. And we are talking about, in China scale, only 4,500 such markets. So that may seem like a big number, but in fact, it's actually a small number when you compare it to the millions of farms and the millions of manufacturers, retailers, stores, and other entities in this very complex supply chain. So we actually feel that this is a very promising area to actually think about how can you actually increase your ability to look on those wholesale markets and regulate them in a more effective way, and maybe also use them because they consolidate the supply chain to create better transparency. But the question is, what is being done today? And for that, you need to actually have data. So that may be a good opportunity to share with you a few of the things that we do regarding data. So the CFDA in China is publishing on a regular basis results on testing that they do for food products. But the challenge is, because of the very distributed organizational structure, that each city, each province has their own website with their own results, structured in a very different standard. And what we were able to do by leveraging a whole set of machine learning and big data analytics, we are able actually to merge and integrate all of these databases into one big database that is structured and that allows you to actually ask new questions that that people were not able to ask, and maybe provide some surprising answers. So let me just share with you one thing. So one thing that we can do now is to really understand how resources are currently being allocated across different types of the supply chain. On the left-hand side, you see here prepared food, wholesale markets, manufacturers, and retail stores. And this is really focused on fresh aquatic product tests. What you see here, that most of the testing resources are allocated to retailers, a little bit more to wholesale markets. But that's surprising because when you actually look on the failure rate, wholesale markets have a higher failure rate by about factor 4, but nevertheless gets fewer resources. And that kind of raises the question why. And one of the hypotheses that we have is, first, maybe this is not known, but other than that, testing in wholesale markets is more challenging because the food actually flies through that location very quickly. So this actually connects immediately to testing capabilities. They're going to be able to be rapid and maybe allow you to test much more quickly and much more effectively, even in a place like a wholesale market. So now you see how analytics connects with technology. And that's kind of our vision. We are actually going to launch very soon a pilot where we're going to start testing in a wholesale market and try to develop some techno-operational concept of how to do that. I mentioned the regulatory environment in China as a big factor. We're actually doing some work on that. And this is really trying to see and measure regulatory strength in a much more objective level at the local level. And the key issue here is transparency. So we actually look on different websites of different regulatory organizations in China, and we score their websites based on how transparent they are to expose problems, to allow reporting on problems, to share data and knowledge. And we do that in an automated way. We can actually scrape all of these websites and score them in an automated way. And in fact, what comes out is that the more transparent they are actually likely to test more, and they are likely to be less problems. That's kind of the initial conclusions that we have. So to conclude with that, this is a big problem. We need an ecosystem to work on that. Supply chain is key, and technology is key, and we need to be able to merge data, analytics, and technology and collaborations to create maybe better ways to manage these risks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor. Looking at all those predictive analytical modeling to look for all the food fraud, adulteration, this is a really great research project. It's going to be a 3 years project, and we look forward to all the results to share with everyone. So next, we're going to introduce Professor Li, talk about his project in China.
Thank you. Thank you, Zhenong, and also thank you for your invitation, to give me this great opportunity to give you a brief report about a project, funded by Walmart Foundation and the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center in Beijing. So this is really the background. The U.S. still is the largest producer and consumer of poultry products in the world. So, and China actually was the second one just 2 years ago. But now Brazil passed just a little bit due to the avian influenza hit, in China badly in the past 2 years. But China still basically, close to the second, now run the third one, the big part of this poultry world. The one thing I should address is in China, really they are facing with great challenges, in the poultry supply chain. This, like just now, Rizzo already mentioned, his team's experience, the variation in the poultry supply chain is really too big. I mean, you're talking about in terms of farm size, the facilities and the locations, the management strategies, all of those things changing dynamically. So that's the one thing they are facing. We try to solve the problem to answer the question like what new technologies, we can actually apply to better manage the poultry supply chain in China, especially dealing with food safety issues. And here is the structure of this big team. Actually, the feature is really international collaboration with multi-disciplines, with multi-institutes, and even multi-companies involved. Basically, at the University of Arkansas, we have 3 colleges, the Division of Agriculture, the engineering, especially the industry engineering with the logistics, the Wharton College of Business, all colleges involved there. And then we have 3 universities, South China Agriculture University, China Agriculture University, and Zhejiang University, plus 1 research institute, Zhejiang Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Totally 18 faculty members and research scientists from those different areas: poultry science, food science, supply chain management, logistics, biological engineering, and more, actually. Then 3 quite giant companies in China, poultry companies, Fujian, Shangnong, New Hope, Liuhe, and Guangzhou, Jiangfeng. So that's the big picture. The second one, we tried, and we are still trying and doing actually the process by the way more systematic and interdisciplinary. So with this way, we hope we can approach the goal set by this project. First looking at the whole supply chain for poultry, products and processing and distribution and marketing. So I put 2 white birds, 1 yellow bird there. Actually, there's 2 white feather broiler supply chains in China, and then plus 1 yellow feather broiler supply chain. So totally, we are investigating 3 supply chains there, actually cross almost the whole China from the south, from the north actually down to the south, extreme south, Hebei province down to Guangdong, near Hong Kong. The roadmap basically, you see those green shaded, blocks are basically we have almost done, and then we are moving to the next 3. We have done, let me go to maybe next slide, make this quick. So the research and application is our first goal in this project. Basically, we have 3, jobs there. And first, to collect enough data, from these 3 supply chains. And then without data, it's hard to identify, those potential problems or existing problems. And without the data, we cannot move to next one. Is basically we can apply some new biosensing technologies for rapid detection in terms of in the field. For example, you can do it on the farm, okay? And then at line means you can do it in the processing plant. And then the on-site, usually we refer to those retail stores, everywhere. So then with the new sensing technology, we will be able to collect the data and directly from those points or nodes we call in the whole poultry supply chain. Finally, with the data, definitely we can develop the dynamic risk assessment model, which can give the regulatory agencies and also the industry early the analysis results so that they can take some actions as soon as possible. That's the basically research part. We'll go back to research part. I would mention 2 things so far. Is we're encouraging actually based on the data we collected just now, we already see one benefit for the industry. The 2 supply chains, when they provided the data, we analyzed that, then they realized, one company realized they need to pay more attention to their chilling process in poultry processing because they got more microbial load after the chilling. So they figure out the problem that they compare with other, supply chains. And they were so, happy about this. And then that second one, after we look at the bacterial pattern, really we found out that the bacteria changed so dramatically after the wholesale market, or in another term, the distribution center. So, and no one has mentioned that even before. Now, since the regulatory agencies, they are more interested in this, and they will do more study, investigation to maybe set up new regulations to control that part. I think at that time we already figured out that the distribution center is run by the company, one company, but actually they collected, the product from so many different other small companies, big companies, and then they mix together there, repackaging the products, and that caused some microbial, cross-contamination. Anyway, the 2 examples I just give you. Education is not a component. Actually, in this project, we try to work on some training workshops. We give these attendees from academia, industry, and the research institute the touch on the new technologies. This is important as we are adopting new technologies. Really, we have to also make the final users ready for that. And then the presentation at those professional international meetings, another component we have done, this with the food science area, food IoT, ILP, poultry science, PSA, the Risk Analysis Society, the American Chemical Society, and engineering area, we have ASAB, IBE, and even IEEE. So in the past 1.5 years, basically, we send people to present, what we are doing in those professional meetings. It's a big component of education. Also, the website, just give you a look at that, and in both Chinese and English, to provide all the updated information and introduce new technologies, and sometimes, have some mechanism to exchange ideas. Final, the third component of this project really about the consulting work. Actually, we really believe after more than 1 year practice, that's also very important in this project, because we have 3 professors from poultry science. 2 of them are extension specialists. They have great experience to deal with the farmers, producers in poultry area. So they went to China with the companies and gave them not only talks but answer questions. In turn, actually, we earned more trust from those poultry companies in China. Then we can work out more, for this project, because there's one thing. Some of you know aware of that. The data sometimes is very sensitive. So you have to win the trust from the company and then get their, the partnership. So that's the reason I'm trying to address this. I just finally show you this again. This really the great project. And thank you again, Walmart Foundation, Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center, and of course, University of Arkansas is leading this project with support from 3 colleges, and then the 3 universities and 1 research institute in China. Also, those 3 companies, they support a lot. And currently, we are still collaborating more data. The data, even we work on that for more than 1 year, still not enough. And we are moving to next one, basically, how to set up the biosensor system with cell phone, and the wireless communication, the data processing and analysis as a whole system, and demonstrate that with at least 1 poultry supply chain. And then at the same time, we move to the modeling to get all this input in real time, and hopefully, anytime who is interested in this, doesn't matter it's government agency or poultry company, you can really get the results, anytime. I think that's all I can report today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Li. Thanks, Professor Li, for this update. And we look forward to the result and then to share with everyone again. There's another example of the collaborative result, the efforts. So next, we invite Dr. Bradley talk about their work for the pre-harvest of the pork production. Mike?
Smithfield has had a very long history of export to China. Smithfield is a very large pork processor. We're the largest U.S. pork processor, largest U.S. pork producer. and have had a long history of working with China to meet those expectations. We've taken a different approach with the pork industry rather than some of the heavy focused on testing. And in the U.S. pork industry, kind of because of the structure and the way the more vertically integrated with the packers, it's given us a lot more opportunity to take a more systems approach, a more systematic approach to give us a lot more impact on pre-harvest food safety. So pork producers have a special role in addressing food safety on the farm. And we recognize that a healthy animal and the production practices on the farm have a great impact to the health of the animal as it comes to the plants. As a meat processor, the challenges are how can a meat processor ensure that the farms are taking the proactive measures and taking the controls that they can on the farm during the good production practices to ensure that the food safety is addressed at the farm level. So what was developed within the pork industry is a systematic, verifiable approach that could be used to ensure that the producers on the farm are taking the actions necessary to produce a safe product. The way this was developed was from the U.S. National Pork Board, developed a task force that involved meat processors, pork producers, veterinarians, and academia to establish the parameters, kind of the comprehensive program of best practices that could be put in place on the farms to address these food safety hazards. This was also used as a platform to address our customers, our retail customers' concerns and their needs and their focuses as well. Over the years, as this program evolved, it's evolved into a PQA Plus program. So while it was originally focused on the HACCP principles and the basic controls that could be put in place on the farm, it's evolved into the PQA Plus program and involves and encompasses more parameters. Animal handling and animal welfare is included as a part of this. Antibiotic usage and documentation, which is of special importance to our trading partners, as well as environmental and working concerns, and also it involves now on-site farm assessments to verify these controls are in place. Now the PQA Plus program is first and foremost an educational program. It's designed to educate the farm, the producers of the best practices and of the expectations that can be put in place on the farm level to ensure safe product. But as a packer or as a meat processor, we can use this PQA Plus program as a condition of sale. So we can source from, make that as a condition of sale to sell to the packers to ensure that they're following this PQA Plus program. Now what's interesting about this program is, and especially as China is looking to change the dynamics of production agriculture there, is the dynamics are changing, but there's still a small component, or will always be a small component of small farms. The PQA Plus program was developed to be applicable to any pig farm at any size, any geographic location, independent of the phase of production, so from farrowing to finishers, from geographic location. So it's an all-encompassing program that fits all stages of production. Now the PQA Plus program really consists of 10 points, good production practices that are designed to ensure that pork is free from chemical and physical hazards, and that the pigs are raised in a caring in regard to their well-being. These are HACCP-based principles, but also focused on the U.S. regulations pertaining to veterinary drugs. One of the first examples of these points is establishing and maintaining an effective herd management health program. So asking the producers to make sure that they've got a good relationship with a veterinarian, that they've got a comprehensive herd health programs in place that address things like biosecurity, rodent and pest control programs, cleaning and disinfecting procedures, things like that, to ensure that the herd health is maintained in maximum maximum status. Another example is the point that addresses proper administration techniques, needle use procedures, and withdrawal times for veterinary drugs to ensure that to avoid the marketing of adulterated products to human food. Now, this is a special point because it does address injection needle controls, for example, which is a physical hazard and a concern for on the live side, and also the drug residue products, to ensure that adequate withdrawal times are followed and that there's clear documentation of adherence to these programs. So we understand that the food safety starts on the farm, that these live animals can serve as a potential source for various chemical, physical, and biological hazards, but that the farms that are producing these animals can put these controls in place that will help minimize these hazards. And this has been a cooperative program that industry, academia, input from the veterinarians, from our customers, from the retail customers, have developed a control program like this to have a comprehensive, proactive, systematic approach that we can use on the farms. And that's how the PQA Plus program has evolved. Now, a meat processor can consider the PQA Plus status as part of their hazard analysis when we're considering the potential concerns that are coming in with the live animal. And that certification can also be used to document their decision-making process and support why they've made that decision that the PQA Plus mitigates many of these hazards. So this is something we shared with our colleagues in China, the China Meat Association, and others, as an example that can be used for looking at a systematic approach. Recognizing that China has a very different and very dynamic hog production systems, but that this is an example where a systematic approach could be evaluated and potentially considered for use in China and other operations. Thank you.
Professor Bradley. And food safety has to start from farm level, right? Yeah. So, our next speaker, Frank, is going to talk about the food safety blockchain.
Good morning. It's good to see each and every one of you, and it's actually very beneficial to be the closing speaker on this panel, talking about the role of technology and education to facilitate trade between China and the U.S. And in fact, as I listened to all the speakers, if there was one term or concept that you heard repeated the most, what would that be? Transparency, trust were terms that I heard from the very beginning speaker that carried through right through the end. So I want to share with you a little bit of the work that we're doing under the auspices of the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center to what we call create a new era of food transparency for food safety and for food traceability. Transparency is a big idea for food safety. If you were to ask me, what are the big things that have advanced food safety over the past 10, 20, 30 years, I'd probably say things like enhanced foodborne disease surveillance through molecular subtyping techniques, whether it's pulsed field jelly electrophoresis or whole genome sequencing. I might say things like enhanced regulation, both in China and in the US, the Food Safety Modernization Act. Risk management concepts such as HACCP. But I think this idea of transparency, I think it's a game changer for the 21st century. Let me share what I mean. The professor started off with an interesting comment about consumers in China are eating more foods from abroad. In the 1980s, the typical grocery store in this country had about 15,000 different food SKUs. At the beginning of the 2000s, how many SKUs do you think a typical grocery store had? Nobody wants to guess? A lot. Over 50,000 SKUs. Just imagine being from the 16th century, fast forwarding in time and entering a Walmart supercenter. You would be in awe of the way we live. And where are we going? Professor Jingshu said it very well, the endless shelf. Consumers being able to get online, order anything they want from anywhere in the world at any time. And so this is presenting some challenges to food safety and to international food safety efforts. Now, the benefits of all of these changes, I think on balance, are wonderful for consumers, able to get foods from all over the world for a fraction of their hard-earned dollar. And so the benefits will outweigh the risks, but there are some unique risks that we have to manage. Food system has an Achilles heel, It has a system. I told you about the benefits of it, but the weaknesses are this. How many of you have been following what's happening with romaine lettuce here in the United States? Okay, 172 cases of E. coli 0157, H7, almost half of those cases hospitalized. I think 20 cases of hemolytic uremic syndrome, a very severe form of kidney failure, 1 death. We're about 4 weeks into the original announcement, 2 weeks into the outbreak, and we still don't know the exact sources of contamination. That's an Achilles heel, a lack of transparency in the food system. It's not unique to the United States. We heard about the melamine incident of 2008. What was that? We heard about melamine in infant milk formula or dairy products in general, and what did we see? World Health Organization came out and said, well, this product actually made it to all of these different countries. And it took weeks to actually chase down where those contaminated ingredients went. An Achilles heel in the global food system. Through the Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center, we made the connection of this new and emerging technology, blockchain, and potentially it being a solution for food traceability and transparency. Now, how many of you have heard of blockchain technology feel you know something about it? Okay, good. Why blockchain? Well, blockchain technology fundamentally digitizes information very differently than the way we've tried to digitize information in the food system in the past. You have 3 models up here, a centralized network, a decentralized network, and a distributed network. Of these 3 networks, which one represents or looks most like the food system to you? Well, most people say the far one to the right. But what do we talk about? We talk about a food chain, implying that it's very simple and linear, when in fact the food system is not simple and linear at all. Ask the health officials that are trying to work on this romaine case. It's a very and in fact, the definition of blockchain, as you see as the top, is a decentralized and trusted distributed digital ledger. I've started saying that the food system is a distributed, decentralized food system, and it's almost as though the food system and blockchain were made for each other. And it also has these features that you've heard about of immutability. Once you put data into a blockchain system, because of the permissioning and sharing of data with other nodes, it's hard to change that data. So it's immutable, and trust is good for business transactions. It has the principle of consensus, democratizing information, and is very trusted. Walmart is not chasing blockchain technology because it's the new shiny coin or the new fad, but we are always interested in trying to make the food system better. And so a digital and transparent food system matters because foodborne illness is still a real risk to real people. I gave you examples of how enhanced traceability would benefit the food system. Food fraud. Why do you think that happens? Reds have talked a little bit about it. Records being kept on paper. What happened in the UK and in Europe a couple of years with the horse meat scandal? Fraudulent actors knowing that they can't get caught, so a digital and transparent food system could deter food fraud, a whole other host of issues. We've done 2 proof of concepts, one in the US and one in China. The one in the US, we actually picked mangoes, and we tried to trace mangoes. You can see how complicated the journey is for mangoes to get from small farms in Central and South America to store. We did one in China with pork. And we tried to trace back. How long do you think it took us to trace back a package of sliced mangoes pulled from a Walmart store back to farm? Anybody want to guess? It took us 6 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes. And health officials tell us, Walmart, you're pretty good at this. Remember the spinach outbreak of 2008? It took health officials 2 weeks. It's over 4 weeks. They still haven't done it with romaine. We did it in 6 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes. After doing work with blockchain and putting all of that information, whether it's the farmer, processor, et cetera, we were able to trace back to source in 2.2 seconds. Imagine walking into a grocery store, scanning a bag of lettuce, and immediately knowing where that lettuce came from. All that is increasingly possible, and we've proven it with our initial pilot with mangoes and pork in China. What's the opposite of transparency? Brets have said opaqueness. It's a good answer. My favorite definition is anonymity. The fact that we really don't know at times where food comes from, how it gets produced, and how it flows to stores. And is anonymity a good thing in food? For the teachers in the room, do you want anonymity in the classroom? Do you want to not have the exam proctor and students be able to do what they want to do? No. How about in banking? Do you want a lot of anonymity in your financial transactions? No. And so anonymity is a good thing because we believe it will lead to greater accountability in food. Eventually, that accountability will lead to responsibility, people just doing the right things because they know every single step, action, and process is being tracked and watched. The benefits of a more transparent food system. Let me emphasize this. At Walmart, we believe that transparency in food and improved relations between the U.S. and China in food safety has to be people-led, but it'll be technology-enabled. People-led, but technology-enabled. And the benefits will be enhanced food safety for both countries, certainly fresher food as we run smarter distribution systems and get fresh food faster from both places. It will be less food waste. Food waste is a big problem in every country that we operate in. A third of all food going to waste. Imagine being able to take days of distribution out, giving those days of shelf life back to customers. It will deter unscrupulous actors, as Retzef mentioned, and it will promote a safer and more responsible food system. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank, for the outstanding presentation. And while we're there, all this presentation and talk about innovations, technology, towards of the transparency, food, the fraud, and all those enhance the trust, confidence of the customer. So I'd like to ask each of the speakers to give some of your thought about how this innovation can enhance the food safety, enhance the trading. So if you can offer your comments on that. That's it.
So I think that typically, not only in food safety, when people talk about innovation, they talk about new technologies. And I agree that technologies are going to be enabling, but I think that the biggest innovation has to start with people and organizations. And one of the things that I think is key is I don't think that many industries, and food industry is not unique to that, the notion that sharing data and finding mechanisms to share data while protecting commercial interest is absolutely key. Because even if you have blockchain technology, if you don't have the data to put into it, it's an empty machine. So to me, the innovation starts with it's a cultural and organizational innovation of understanding what data can give you and what sharing data could actually give with the help of technology, with the help of analytics, with the help of many other things. But to me, that's key for innovation. So.
Can I build on that? Because I agree completely. And I hope that you heard the phrase that it's just not a phrase, we genuinely believe it. Advancements need to be people-led, technology-enabled. What we're finding in the blockchain work, Retzef, is that while blockchain is new technology, solving the digital connections in the food system, it'll be challenging, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is the social challenges of collaborating in food systems and ecosystems in a different way, sharing information, permissioning it for others to see it. And so I do think this is a great start, but it needs to be dialogues on both fronts, technology and social interactions.
Just as an anecdote, when we visited wholesale markets in China, I asked them, okay, why won't you build an electronic platform to put all the commercial interactions online? And people explained to me, well, if you put it online, then you have to pay tax for it. People are not going to. Well, these are the challenges that you face that you face on the ground, and if you don't address them, then you have technology that is no use, right?
But let me just share one last thing before we leave this topic. One of the things you saw on the blockchain slide about some of the core features, it says it builds consensus and it's democratic. It's one of the things we believe why blockchain is different, because in previous systems, people would get into these linear siloed systems. You'd share information generally because a buyer is making you do that, so it's either a big retailer or a big food service company. And the only one that benefits is the retailer or food service company. Whereas blockchain shares that information a little bit more transparently, and what we've seen in some of our pilots is everybody benefits. And so it's resulting in something that our CEO talks a lot about, Doug McMillan, about creating shared value. And one way to get people to collaborate is to create shared value so that everybody gets smarter and better together.
I just want to add that, Frank said, last trip when I was in Shenzhen, I visited the Shenzhen CDC, Shenzhen Import-Export Inspection, Bureau, and FDA, three, divisions basically under the same government. But whenever I ask them your system, your prediction model, yeah, we have our database. Yeah, I have our prediction model. I said, you never worked together. You make it. No, I never. So the same thing. I think the technology there, and with blockchain, we hope this really can be done. Even different agencies, they have a lot of data. Even CDC, they have the foodborne diseases, whatever outbreak, and then. But the FDA's division never get that. They work on their own. So I support. Also, in addition to this, I think some new technology, including the one I mentioned in that project, we are now conducting the biosensing technology, maybe the one way to set up some automatic, data, the collection and processing system. See, that's another way you can get some, I would sometimes say, reliable data. Really, you sometimes get some data you cannot tell. And then if we have some technology which can be set up on site, at line, then it means, but they're still challenging. I can tell you now the challenge is how to automatically collect samples. In food supply chain, is really challenging. Actually, you can have the very small sensor there. With cell phone, you can collect all the data, immediately transfer or send it to the central or the cloud, for data analysis. But how to get sample, automatically without the human operators interfere. So that's my remark.
And I would just follow up on what Frank had said. A lot of this is still going to be a very big change and a buy-in for a lot of these stakeholders. As you look at the whole food system from the farms to the finished retail store, there are a lot of people that touch that, and a lot of people that, in his example, that may not welcome that transparency as much as you would think they would be. But it is going to be a people-driven cultural change on many levels of the system.
And to some extent, what Frank and what we heard at the beginning about agriculture, I think that fundamentally, to create shared values, we will need to think about fundamentally how to improve farmers' well-being, infrastructure, ability to make money. Because the worst thing that you can have in this supply chain is a small margin, small farmers that cannot make their living. That's if you have that, you can bring all the technology in the world, you will still have problems. And so I think that this connects very well to things that we heard.
But you could use the technology to create value. So
absolutely.
For example, farmers take a lot of pride in what they do, and oftentimes they're not connected with customers. And so you can use technology like this to connect the customer with the farmer in storytelling. We've seen some proactive and innovative work being done to accelerate farmer payments on technology platforms. And so I agree with you. You have to figure out, if you create these digital ecosystems, how does every single actor in the food system benefit? And the food system is pretty complicated, what you're hearing here today. It's a team effort. It requires collaboration, so no single entity is going to do it alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your opinion. And so we heard many of the words: transparency, trust, the confidence, and also the collaboration. So we look for more of this dialogue and also more of the projects in the future. And so thank you very much for your great support. Yeah, thank you.